The Moors Murders, the sadistic crimes of Ian Brady and Myra Hindley. The Moors Murders stand as some of the most infamous and shocking crimes in British history. Between 1963 and 1965, Ian Brady and Myra Hindley abducted, tortured, and murdered 5 children in Manchester, England. The murders took place on the desolate Saddleworth Moor, where the killers buried their victims, giving the case its notorious name. Brady and Hindley's crimes horrified the nation, not only because of their sadistic nature but also due to the apparent normalcy of Hindley, whose involvement shocked British society. The killers, Ian Brady and Myra Hindley. Ian Brady was born in Glasgow, Scotland, in 1938. His early life was turbulent. He was raised in poverty by a single mother and was eventually sent to live with foster parents. From a young age, Brady exhibited troubling behavior, including cruelty to animals and a fascination with violence. By the time he reached adolescence, he had become involved in petty crime, and in 1955, he was sent to a Borstal, a British reform school for young offenders. After his release, Brady moved to Manchester, where he worked as a stock clerk. He became an avid reader of literature that glorified fascism and violence, particularly works by Marquis de Sade and Friedrich Nietzsche, which seemed to fuel his fantasies of domination and cruelty. Myra Hindley was born in Manchester in 1942. Like Brady, she had a difficult childhood, marked by abuse and neglect. However, Hindley was seen as a relatively ordinary young woman, who worked as a typist and was known for her blonde hair and good looks. Her descent into violence began when she met Ian Brady at the Millwoods Merchandise Company in Manchester, where both worked. Hindley quickly became infatuated with Brady, seeing him as an intellectual and charismatic figure. Brady introduced Hindley to his disturbing worldview, and under his influence, she embraced his violent and sadistic fantasies. Their relationship evolved into a dangerous partnership that would culminate in a series of brutal murders. The murders between 1963 and 1965, Brady and Hindley abducted and murdered 5 children, all between the ages of 10 and 17. The victims were lured with promises of rides, gifts, or help, and then taken to the remote Saddleworth Moor, where they were subjected to unimaginable cruelty before being murdered. The couple meticulously planned and documented their crimes, taking photographs of their victims and even recording audio of some of the killings. Victims of the Moors murders. Pauline Reed, 16 years old, the first victim. Pauline was abducted on July 12, 1963, while on her way to a dance. Brady and Hindley lured her into their car, drove her to the moor, and killed her after Brady sexually assaulted her. Her body was buried on the moor, and it wasn't discovered until 1987. John Kilbride, 12 years old, John was abducted on November 23, 1963, after Brady and Hindley offered him a ride home from a market. He was taken to Saddleworth Moor, where he was sexually assaulted and strangled. His body was buried on the moor and discovered during the investigation in 1965. Keith Bennett, 12 years old, Keith disappeared on June 16, 1964, after being lured by Hindley while walking to his grandmother's house. He was taken to the moor and strangled by Brady. Keith's body has never been found, despite extensive searches and appeals by his family over the years. Leslie Ann Downey, 10 years old, Leslie Ann was abducted on December 26, 1964, from a fairground in Manchester. She was taken to Brady and Hindley's home, where she was tortured, raped, and murdered. The couple took photographs of Leslie during the assault and recorded audio of her pleading for her life. Her body was later buried on the moor and discovered in 1965. Edward Evans, 17 years old, the final victim. Edward Evans was murdered on October 6, 1965. Brady lured him to Hindley's home and bludgeoned him to death with an axe in front of David Smith, Hindley's brother-in-law, who had been invited to watch the murder. Discovery and arrest. The murder of Edward Evans was the event that ultimately led to Brady and Hindley's capture. On the night of the killing, David Smith, horrified by what he had witnessed, fled the scene and reported the crime to the police. The next day, officers searched Brady and Hindley's home, where they found Evans' body wrapped in plastic in an upstairs bedroom. Further investigation revealed the couple's involvement in the other murders. Police discovered photographs of the victims and the disturbing audio recording of Leslie and Downey's torture. Brady and Hindley were arrested, and a search of Saddleworth Moor led to the discovery of the bodies of John Kilbride and Leslie and Downey. The trial and sentencing. The trial of Ian Brady and Myra Hindley began on April 19, 1966, at Chester Assizes. The case attracted massive media attention, and the British public was horrified by the revelations of the sadistic torture and murders. Brady and Hindley showed little remorse during the proceedings, with Brady attempting to justify his actions through his warped intellectual beliefs. The most damning piece of evidence against the pair was the audio recording of Leslie and Downey's final moments, in which she could be heard begging for her life. The photographs of the children, taken by Hindley during their captivity, further implicated her in the crimes. On May 6, 1966, both were convicted of multiple murders. Ian Brady was sentenced to life imprisonment for the murders of John Kilbride, Leslie and Downey, and Edward Evans. Myra Hindley was sentenced to life imprisonment for the murders of Leslie and Downey and Edward Evans, as well as being found guilty of harboring Brady in the murder of John Kilbride. The aftermath of the Moors murders left a deep and lasting impact on Britain. Brady and Hindley became symbols of pure evil, and the case is still remembered as one of the most heinous in British criminal history. Ian Brady spent the rest of his life in prison, later being moved to a high-security psychiatric hospital. He showed no remorse for his crimes, often expressing disdain for his victims and the public's outrage. Brady died in May 2017 at the age of 79, taking with him many secrets, including the exact location of Keith Bennett's body, which has never been found. Myra Hindley's involvement in the murders shocked the public because she was a woman, and her role in the brutal crimes was seen as a betrayal of traditional gender norms. She repeatedly claimed that she had been manipulated by Brady and sought to distance herself from the crimes. Hindley applied for parole several times during her imprisonment but was consistently denied due to public outcry. She died in November 2002 at the age of 60. Keith Bennett's family. One of the enduring tragedies of the Moors murders is the unresolved fate of Keith Bennett. Despite multiple searches, his body has never been found, and Brady refused to reveal its location, claiming he had forgotten. Keith's mother, Winnie Johnson, spent her life searching for her son's remains, but she died in 2012 without finding closure. Legacy and impact. The Moors murders had a profound impact on British society and criminal justice. The sheer brutality of the crimes, combined with the fact that they were committed by a seemingly ordinary couple, shattered the sense of safety in Britain during the 1960s. The case remains a grim reminder of the capacity for human cruelty, especially when two individuals feed off each other's darkest impulses. The murders also sparked a debate about the death penalty, which had been abolished in Britain in 1965, just before Brady and Hindley's trial. Many believed that the pair deserved to be executed for their crimes, and their continued imprisonment fueled discussions about whether the death penalty should be reinstated for particularly heinous crimes.